Hi guys, it's Michelle, the Insulin Empress. Yesterday I was telling you guys about how being around food affects your insulin levels even before you eat anything, even before you stick anything in your mouth. Just being around food can affect you. It's not a problem if you're about to eat. It's okay for your sugars to drop a little bit and your ketones to drop a little bit while you're getting ready to eat, because you are ready to consume food. And insulin, the dropping of the sugar kind of helps you to develop a stronger appetite, which is a good thing. And then the drop of the fat burning and the rise of the insulin is supposed to help glucose get into the cells, and so it facilitates that proper function that insulin is supposed to have. So it's normal for it to happen when you're about to eat, but it's just an awareness issue, understanding that when you're constantly around food or constantly being bombarded with food ads, or talking about food or thinking about food, obsessing about food, that it can have a negative effect on you. And so today I managed to do things a little bit differently than yesterday. So today I didn't have to run around for 20 minutes with food sitting right next to me. I did my job, did my work, and then I didn't cook today, so I went to McDonald's again for 5 quarter-pounder patties. Just went to McDonald's, ordered the stuff, went and used the bathroom real quick, came back, got my food, went inside my car, immediately checked my levels, and my levels hadn't changed. At least they hadn't gone down. In fact, my ketones went up just a tiny little smudge. And so that just further proves, I know this is just an n equals 1, just one person's experience, is not a study, I know that, but it still shows what happens when you are around food for an extended amount of time. It raises your insulin levels and drops your sugars, and it drops which, if you're a type 2 diabetic, you're thinking, oh, it's great if it drops my sugars. Not necessarily. For someone whose sugars are already low, this can drop your sugar levels. But for someone who has really high sugar levels, this is not going to impact you. It might actually make your sugar levels higher, because there's another mechanism that happens in a diabetic body, a type 2 diabetic body, that can affect your sugar levels. And so today my sugar levels and my ketones were not impacted because I wasn't sitting around with food and thinking about food for 20 minutes. It made a difference. And so I just checked. It's been an hour and 15 minutes since I ate, or since I started eating, and my ketones are still right where they were before, at 0.6. So when I checked earlier today, it was 0.5. My ketones were at 0.5. And then when I checked right before eating, they were at 0.6. So it had increased a little bit, which was nice. The more ketones you make, the more fat you're burning, and my goal is to burn fat. You look at my face and everybody's like, oh, you don't have any fat to lose. It's not here. When you're insulin resistant, you tend to not have fat up here or up here. It's all down here. See this? This is all chunk, okay? I just squeeze my fat for the whole world to see. That's where you store fat when you're insulin resistant, around the middle, where it doesn't bother anybody. It's the safest place to store fat. If you have to store, that's the place you want to store. But it's also a sign of insulin resistance. We do not live in an age or a time or a climate where we don't have access to food. We live in an age where we have an overabundance and over access to food. We constantly have access to food, and it's actually to our detriment. Our bodies are made to store fat where that insulin is that reactive, and it's for our own survival. It's a survival mechanism, so that when you do find carbs, you can eat them and store them as fat, so that when you have to go without, your body can still survive. It's a survival mechanism. This is how our body is designed. Our body is not designed to have access to food and nutrients 24/7. It's just not designed for that. For places where you have, like tropical places where you have fruit growing year-round, in those places the sun shines a lot. And I don't know if you knew this, and I'll do another video on this, but direct sunlight helps to lower insulin levels. And so in those places where people have more access to higher glycemic fruits all year long, they're also outside more. and they're in the direct sunlight more, which helps them to keep their insulin levels lower so they don't store as much. So they use more than what they store. So their insulin levels are naturally lower when they're in a tropical area, and they're naturally higher when they're not, because of the fact that the more north up you live, the colder the temperature, the colder the climate, the more your body wants to be able to hoard on to and store and hoard on to anything that it can find. If you can find a pumpkin or berries or whatever, it wants to hoard it. It wants to store it for the hard times that come ahead. But in the tropics, you don't have to do any kind of hoarding. So insulin levels tend to stay lower when a person gets more direct sunlight. So I'm off on another tangent. This is why I gotta structure my videos and do, I'm not good at that. I'm starting to learn how to do that, but I'm not good at doing bullet points, and I just like to talk off the cuff because it's something that I'm passionate about, something I know a lot about. It's something that I'm going through in my own body. So I'm fighting insulin resistance in my own body, and I've been dealing with it for several decades, and I've learned to manage it. And so this is just something I can talk forever about. I can talk your ears off about this. My poor husband, his eyes just start to glaze over when I start talking about medical stuff and health stuff, and it's not his thing, which is totally understandable. But I can talk about this forever. Just if you give me the time, I can just do it. So back to the topic. I just wanted to show you what happens when you don't sit around food and you don't obsess over food and you're not around food, and how that also impacts your insulin. It helps you to stay in a longer fat burning state. When I first started doing my fasting sessions, I would not leave my room. When I first started learning how to do extended fasting, and I would just do it once a week on the weekend for 36 hours, I would literally stay in my room the whole time. I would just binge watch comedies, so I would laugh the whole time. I had a bathroom there, so I could go to the bathroom if I wanted to, but I did not venture out of my room, especially did not go to the kitchen, because I knew that as soon as I walked into the kitchen, like, oh, there's granola bars, there's this, there's that, there's yogurt, I would want everything. And I would start thinking about food, obsessing about food, and that would have messed up my progress. So just staying in my room away from ideas of food and whatever helped tremendously. So if you know you have an issue with obsessing over food, this is something that you need to get help with, okay? And it's not something that's fixable immediately in one session, in one day. Sometimes you need therapy. Sometimes you just need to feed your body. Actually, the biggest one, probably 99% of the people out there just need to feed their body. Their hunger is real. The hunger and the fatigue that they feel is real, and it comes from the fact that there is no food getting into their cells, despite the fact that it'll be surrounded by glucose, but none of it's actually getting into the cell, and this is because of insulin resistance. And so the cells send a signal to the brain saying, hey, we're hungry. So then the brain's like, okay, gotcha. I'm going to go tell glucagon to make more sugar, and then when sugar goes up, the body tells them to make more insulin, and then your insulin resistance, your type 2 diabetes gets worse. And you're still just as fatigued and just as tired and just as hungry as ever. So learning how to feed your cells, there's 2 different ways to do it, and I'll talk about it in another video. Learning how to feed your cells so you can stop that message that's being sent to the brain so you can feel better makes a huge difference. And then that usually takes care of the obsessing over food. So most people don't have an actual eating disorder or a psychiatric need or problem that they're dealing with when it comes to food. So there are a subset of people, and there should be no stigma against this. If you have issues, do not be afraid to get help. Therapy helps so much. I've gotten therapy before for different things, and it helps so much. It's just good to get it, okay? But for the majority of the people out there dealing with hunger, constantly thinking about food, I'm at work, so it's a work call. People that are constantly thinking about food, it's because of the fact that they're insulin resistant and their body is begging for nutrition. It's all there, it's just not getting into the cells. And so learning how to get that into the cells makes a huge difference. So I'm going to make another video where you guys can learn about how to get food into the cells to stop the constant food addiction and food obsession that keeps you locked in this space of being insulin resistant and being chronically fatigued and being constantly hungry. So I will see you guys in the next video.